Right now, where's Monty Hall when you need him? Is it time to make a deal, and are they getting any closer in Washington? As we inch towards the fiscal cliff, it seems that that deal could just maybe, possibly be in sight. We'll tell you what the framework of it looks like and how it'll impact you at home. And next, we're serving up another steaming hot bowl of rice. Like to play on words there, very clever, or not so much. Speculation grows about Susan Rice's potential nomination appointment, and we're asking if the GOP's opposition to her is really about getting a Senate seat back in Massachusetts. We'll tell you what the latest is coming out of the rumor mill. We'll explain on that. And later, President Obama and Mitt Romney do lunch. Ever wonder what would happen if these two guys, after a bitter campaign, actually sat down to share lunch? What would be on the menu, both conversationally and actually on the plates? We'll have more on that. A lot to cover in the next 60 minutes, but first, good evening and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French. Thanks so much for joining us this Thursday evening, November 29th. Now, let's start once again with a long, slow march towards the fiscal cliff. Now, for those of you trying to keep score at home here, the deadline is just 33 days away, and obviously we're getting closer. No substantive progress formally to report. That's how House Speaker John Boehner described the meetings today between congressional leaders and members of the administration. And those meetings were led by outgoing Treasury Secretary Tim Geithner. But there is some news tonight, at least a little bit on the positive or hopeful side. First real glimpse at what a final deal on this cliff might look like. And for that, let's bring in our senior political correspondent, Andrew Whitman. I don't want to get ahead of myself here, but it does seem that it's in the best interest of all parties involved to get a deal done, and behind the scenes, there is some progress.
Think of this as the basis, Rich, and any specific details on other issues will wind up being negotiated as we move towards January 1st. Politico today reporting on what it says the framework of the eventual fiscal cliff deal will look like. This coming from several sources inside the negotiations thus far. The deal breaks down over three areas: taxes, entitlements, and spending cuts. First up, taxes, rates, revenues, whatever, going up to the tune of $1.2 trillion worth, though the insider saying both the White House and congressional Democrats are flat out demanding higher tax rates for anyone making $250,000 a year or more. The inference is that the Bush tax cuts will likely remain for anyone under the $250,000 level. Next, entitlements, savings of at least $400 billion, perhaps more. Most of those cuts to come from Medicare, including means testing, excluding wealthier retirees from some benefits or making them pay more, an increase in the Medicare retirement age, and more efficiencies to produce more savings within the system. Those changes will only take effect in 10 or 20 years. And at the insistence of Senate Leader Harry Reid, Social Security will likely not be a part of any deal. Finally, spending cuts, the big must-have for Republicans. At least $1.2 trillion worth of cuts, but no details on where they'll come from or how much, if any, will come from defense. Those savings from the end of the wars will be included in the cuts. Also of note, Politico reporting the deal will be struck primarily by two men, then sold to the remainders of both parties. Those two men, President Obama and Speaker John Boehner. The risk? That's the same duo who made a deal on the debt limit last year, only to see House Republicans scuttle that plan. And whether this deal gets similarly scuttled may come down to one man, seen as the real wild card in this process: House Budget Chairman and former VP nominee Paul Ryan. Will Ryan endorse the deal despite the tax increases that are likely to come with it? Or with an eye towards a presidential run in 2016, will Ryan emerge as the leader of the opposition? If he does, he could lead enough Republicans away from Boehner to sink any potential deal. Rich?
All right, Andrew, thank you. And you know, when we talk about this stuff, I know it's dry to some folks, but trust me, this will be one of these things where you're going to feel the impact here. And what I don't think is being said enough from both sides is no matter what deal they construct and come up with, you're going to feel it. Maybe in small ways, maybe in larger ways, depending on what tax bracket you're in or what you rely on for social safety net stuff. But sooner or later, the consequences of this thing will be real. All right, and I want to bring in our panel to talk more about that and beyond here tonight. Bill O'Reilly, one of our favorites, Republican consultant and columnist for Newsday. Dominic Carter, political journalist and author. And Andrew, who you've already met. And Bill, let me start with you. We'll get into the odds and the politics in a little bit. But what do you think at the end of the day this deal is going to have to include? I think Andrew gave the big broad strokes of this thing. There'll be revenue on the table. That means rates. There'll be some of the deduction stuff, but there'll probably be cuts too. Start from the Republican side. What do they really want? Instead of just lip service, what do they really want to see in this deal?
I think the Republicans really want more on the entitlement side. I mean, right now it's being billed as the fiscal cliff, but it's really an anthill compared to the larger problems that the country has. When you talk about the Bush tax cuts, you're talking about putting $82 billion in new revenue a year out there, when we're adding about $8 trillion a year in unfunded liabilities with Social Security, Medicare, unfunded programs, and with the federal pensions. So this is really a very small amount of money, compared to the larger problem. But so Republicans are looking for entitlement reform.
And Andrew's getting the same thing. The Social Security probably won't be on the table at the end of it. This isn't something we got to deal with today.
Yeah.
There's some long-term questions, but maybe there'll be some structural changes to it. Retirement ages could be done. They may be means tested. And it adds up to real money down the line. But Medicare, if there's any changes, they won't take effect, just like we heard from Paul Ryan here, until 10, 15 years down the line for this thing. Would that be enough for Republicans to say, as long as we see a roadmap here to change the system?
Yes, as long as they're built in, because those liabilities, the big problems facing the country, the things spooking the markets, is the long-term debt for the country. So as long as they're built in over the long term, I think Republicans would accept that.
Now, Erskine Bowles, who many of you may remember, just the name, the Simpson Bowles, they were the co-authors here of the Deficit Reduction Committee. He says he thinks the odds of a deal are 1 in 3. Dominic, obviously, nobody wants to, on all sides, say that they see the light at the end of the tunnel, everything's going to be okay. It kind of disincentivizes everybody from getting to the table. Where would you put the odds that something gets done here before the end of the year?
Almost guaranteed of some type of deal. The country can't afford anything else. If there's no deal, the country will go back into a full recession and possibly worse. There's no other option, no other way to look at this.
And you think what that deal is, because there'd be a lot of different things, you think it's a little piece of it and they kick the can down a little bit more?
I don't know. I know that the president right now has the capital, the political capital. I don't know if he kicks this down the can, if Republicans are giving him somewhat resistance now, what's going to happen down the road? And so politically, I don't know if that's smart. I think the deal's going to happen now.
If he can get a deal done where they say, all right, you know what, we'll give you your, we'll make permanent the tax cuts for $250 and less. We'll do it, because it's politically crazy for them to be seen here come January 1 as the ones who wouldn't give it to 98% of Americans. They say they'll go along with that and say, give us an extension another 30, 60 days, work out the rest of it. You think that's enough for him to sell that they've at least made progress? Because at the end, he's going to get some rate increase here on the top 2%. The question is how much, over what period. Does it start at 250? Does it start at $500,000? Is it 37%? Is it 39%? But that's bookkeeping. Is it enough to just say, I got you your tax cut, I'm going to solve the rest here, give me a month or two?
The president is not backing down in terms of an increase on taxing the wealthy. I think that would be enough to perhaps kick the can down the road, but at some point, eventually, it's coming around and it's going to have to be done in terms of an increase on the wealthy, tax increase.
Now, Andrew, there's one major player. You've been talking about him. Obviously, outside of the president here, the tougher job, I would think, goes to the Speaker of the House. And he's getting from both sides some acquiescence to what the Democrats want and some firm opposition. And if you look at the Republican caucus and the differences of opinions here, there may be room here for potentially a Republican to emerge in a stronger position as the unqualified leader of the party and compare the situation to a year ago. Listen to what the normally conservative Tom Cole had to say about a tax deal.
If the president's willing to accept 80% of the Bush tax cuts for 98% of the American people and make them permanent, I think that is a point we should agree on, do that, and then continue to fight for the things that we believe in.
All right, so give the 98% the tax cut. Now balance that against what many others in the GOP are saying on the same subject.
Increasing marginal rates is income tax rates. Is not the way to produce growth and to put people back to work.
All right, and that Eric Cantor. Now, Andrew, I think for some people they say, oy vey, same thing as last year where they thought he had a deal, he goes back and the Tea Party blows it up here, and then we go past the new year and we go into all the mess. You could make the argument, and I happen to subscribe to it, that this is exactly what Boehner wants, what's going on right now in the party. Some are itching for the deal, they'll take it, while others are holding fast to it. He gets to look like the man in the middle here as the voice of, let's say, the middle road of his party.
He does if he can pull it off, but there's really not a great track record of him pulling this off. Let's look back at the debt limit fight from last year. I mean, certainly the split that you described, with some Republicans wanting to concede on those upper end tax cuts and others holding firm to where they are, leaves plenty of room in the middle for John Boehner to sort of take the microphone and take the spotlight if he can get everybody to follow him. But, you know, Bill, maybe you can answer this for me. I don't know how you convince rank and file Republicans and rank and file Republican voters to all of a sudden go for tax increases when they've been hearing straight up and down for the last 12 years that tax increases are the devil's work.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question we don't like tax increases. The Republican Party stands on that. But if we can get a big package here, and I think there's a great opportunity here, both for the president and for the Republican Party, to do something big, to do something huge. I mean,
and you're right, Dominic, they got to do it sooner than later, right? The longer the calendar goes, the harder you're going to get to.
That's right. I mean, the president was just reelected. He's a lame duck president. His power will be waning soon. We're 4 years off to the next election. There's a genuine bona fide crisis here. We can get some consensus quickly. Both sides could do something really big here. If we did real entitlement reform, and the Republicans, we would have to break on the high income taxes.
And you're right, Dom. That clock, it's a different one. Not just 12:31 with a cliff here. It's also for the leverage issue. All right, we take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Republicans' firm opposition here to Susan Rice. What is really driving this thing, and could it be? And it might have to do a little bit with the state of Massachusetts. We'll explain here our conspiracy theory and also what's also really all behind all of this. I almost said another Yiddish word, but Andrew looked at me with a dirty look, so I won't. We'll be all back with that after this.